Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we've chosen to discuss the crisis in Indian agriculture, how agriculture growth rate over the past 3 years and going into this year, this fiscal too, has experienced subpar growth rates, less than 1.5%, whereas the 12th plan had actually projected a 4% average growth rate during these years. We are in the middle of the 12th plan. What are the reasons why agriculture is lagging? And now we've reached a stage where the depression in rural demand because of low agriculture growth rate is impacting the broader economy. To discuss this and many other issues, we have with us today Dr. Ashok Gulati, who is a very well-known agriculture economist, currently Infosys chair, professor at an economic think tank called ICRIER. He is also a member of an agriculture task force within Niti Aayog, has been a member of the Shanta Kumar committee, which looked at the restructuring of the food stocking distribution mechanism. Welcome to our show, Dr. Ashok Gulati. Now, you are probably one of the very few economists who watched Indian agriculture evolve over the past maybe 4 or 5 decades. You've been writing extensively on agriculture, and your last column in the Indian Express struck me as very serious. There was a very serious note there where you argued that if the policy framework continues to be so defocused as it has been and as it is now, India could even slip back to the shortages of the 1960s, in spite of a lot of gains that we've made in agriculture over the past 2 decades. Why are you so despondent as an economist, as an agri-economist?
Well, you know, to me, the purpose of public policy is to ensure welfare of those who are below the poverty line, around the poverty line, those who are less privileged than you and me are.
Yeah, sure.
Looking at that, and then I look at last 3 years, the agriculture GDP has grown at 1.7% per annum, that's the average.
Okay.
Target was 4%. And this back-to-back drought that
last year was 1.4% or less than 1.1%.
1.1, but 3 years average.
What do you expect? What do you expect this year, coming year?
You know, frankly, they are saying area sown has been better than last year or almost equal.
But large parts of India
I am traveling around in the country,
really under a drought, right?
And most of the news that I'm getting is the yields are going to be 20% below, 30% below. In some parts, crop is more or less wilted.
Okay.
And, you know, the story is very pathetic. And I feel...
Like which parts have you traveled recently?
You know, I have been going all over, but Maharashtra was the latest that
Marathwada is really bad.
Marathwada is where drinking water has become a problem. The drinking water they are getting after a week or 10 days. And think about what happens to humans and what happens to animals and what happens to crops.
Crops, yeah.
So it's a little very disturbing news. I came back. I thought over, literally cried, because I'm asking a basic political question. When we are saying the economy is growing at 7%, 8%, or we are likely to get 10%, this growth is for whom?
Yeah.
If your agriculture is growing at less than 2% and back-to-back drought they are facing,
for food droughts,
it's a question of existence, it's a question of survival. So is this political economy and the policy making only for you and me, traveling in world-class facilities and whatever we want to have? Yes, everybody has aspirations, but I think the focus of public policy has to be on those who are less privileged.
Yeah.
And they are struggling today. If the farmer in this country, the slogan of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan has no meaning if farmers are committing suicides. You have more than 600 farmers already committed suicide in Marathwada region.
Is it still
It's going on. Even last week, I think about 30 farmers committed suicide. Now, we can go into all sorts of reasons why they are doing this or that, but anyone who has his ears on the ground and is concerned with the farming community of this country, I feel really disturbed this year because Kharif was lost earlier. Rabi was bad because of hailstorms and all that.
The unseasonal rains,
and now you have this, again, a drought. Half the country is in the grip of a drought today. And our focus...
and our rainfall is also, final figure is deficit, right?
Minus 16.
Minus 16%.
Minus 16.
Of the long-term average.
Till yesterday evening, it was minus 16 and almost half the country is in drought. Although IMD had said it will be minus 12, so it is worse than that.
Worse than that, yeah.
And if we don't focus right now, I think you can't... My feeling is we awake very late in the game. I think action... Immediately you should be announcing some relief for Marathwada farmers.
Okay. Even Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, I told?
Exactly. North Interior, Karnataka, Marathwada, Madhya Maharashtra, even Gujarat region, all is deficit. Even your Eastern UP, minus 35.
Okay, Eastern UP is also...
Yes, minus 35.
Okay.
Till yesterday. So you have, you know, I'm talking to people in Bihar and Eastern UP where irrigation is not assured. Those people...
So you're saying there'll be heavy crop losses there also?
You know, the news from Maharashtra is 20 to 30% loss in yield minimum.
Minimum. And Eastern UP?
Eastern UP, I mean, there are parts where even paddy is gone, it has wilted away.
Okay.
So it depends upon those who have irrigation. They are somehow able to survive through irrigation, but I'm looking at some of the crops, you know, tuar for example, you know, already prices are hovering in retail between 125 to 150.
Dal, okay.
Dal. And I won't be surprised after 4 months it hits a double century.
Okay.
Because Maharashtra is the biggest producer of pulse, tuar. The damage is anywhere from 25-30%, places 40-50%. And then we talk of importing 5,000 tons of tuar dal in a consumption of 3.3 million tons. What are we talking? So it's a drop in the bucket.
Ocean, yeah. Okay.
So that's not how to manage the market economy. I think if you have to stabilize prices, then you have to take action well in advance.
So what should... you described the situation very well. There's a crisis, right? Large parts of the country, deficit rainfall. Already crops were damaged earlier on, right? So the Kharif crops, unseasonal rains. The government came up with certain measures. Now, what should the government do now? You said government is always late in responding now. What should be done immediately to alleviate the plight of the farmers?
Number of things can be done. But the first and the biggest thing is you need a champion of agriculture in the government.
Government, yeah.
Which has been more or less missing.
People don't remember the agri-minister's name.
Well, I can't say that, but you know, that's a story. So what is the priority within the cabinet that agriculture is getting? Because the decisions have to be taken by the political class, who are our elected representatives. So the core group which takes those decisions, 5, 7, 10 ministers, where is agriculture figuring there? That is one thing which is missing. Number two, at present it is firefighting. I think first thing that we have to do immediately is get drinking water in Marathwada, whether through tankers or trains or anything, both for humans as well as for cattle. And there have to be cattle camps to give them fodder also. So this is firefighting. Immediately, as 30th of September, you are more or less sure that rainy season is over. Within 5 days, you can assess how much is the damage. You can use your satellites, drones, or whatever else you want to use, and immediately come up how much is the damage in that part. And then announce the package immediately of compensation of insurance.
Sure.
instead of those people coming on the road and fighting and dying and crying, government should go forward that there is a crisis and we are coming here with this package.
Okay.
Now, what package it can be? My feeling is insurance has to be resurrected and compensation has to be given on that account.
Yeah.
Number two, the credit, which short-term credit they have taken from the banks, they can't pay back.
Yeah, sure.
So, I'm not saying you do loan waiver, which many Congress and other people are asking. I would say restructure that over a period of 2 years, 3 years.
If you can do it for the big industry, why not for the small farmer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, these are all subsistence or some marginal commercial. So I think at least they can do that. They can waive off the interest rate on that.
Interest rate.
You know, that type of a thing can be arranged. But then in the medium to long run, this government has to focus. Any government that does not care for 50% of its workforce, because that is still in agriculture, then I think that is not for the people of this country.
Yeah, sure.
And that is where my biggest worry is whether the policy making has been hijacked by the elitist elements within the system and they want to take us to Mars directly, or you arrange for the drinking water and the basics of this country for 50% of the workforce and about 60% of the people dependent on that.
Sure, you can't bypass the food producers like this.
How can your lion run with its feet of clay?
So we'll take a small break here, Ashok, and discuss this in greater detail. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are discussing the crisis in India's farm sector with well-known agriculture economist Dr. Ashok Gulati. Dr. Gulati, you said something very interesting. You said you cannot ignore 50% of India's workforce engaged in agriculture directly or indirectly, and just talk about Make in India. If you do that, the lion will have feet of clay. So it's odd. Somebody recently told me that why don't we first properly establish Make in India in agriculture.
That's right.
And then move to industry.
That's right.
All economies globally follow that sequence. Yeah.
That's
industry, agriculture, industry, services. Now, recently the Prime Minister met a whole range of industrialists. They were in Delhi to discuss the overall slowdown in the economy, global economy, its impact on India. And I didn't see any agriculture practitioner there, although the industrialists there did discuss the farm sector, because there is a certain tokenism which even the industrialists feel guilty about the farm sector. So they discuss the farm sector. Now after that, I read an article which said that the policies today in this crisis so biased in favor of industry that the industry is asking for higher import duties for protection in the commodities like steel makers, aluminium, and the agriculture farmers who are exporting, there's a ban on being put on the exports because the government fears that there will be inflation. So the farmer cannot get a higher price, but the industry must get a higher price through higher import duties. In the case of farmers, the import duties are zero and there are export bans. Now, how does such a terrible bias creep into policy?
You know, it's not new. This has been going on in the name of protecting the poor.
Yeah.
What do? You make the farmer poor. It's not the responsibility of the farmer to serve the poor. He himself is poor.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is the general exchequer that has to take care of that. There are very clear rules in the trade policy regime. Trade policy, if you want competitiveness, it has to be open on both sides, imports as well as exports. If there is a major disturbance in the global economy, yes, for a time being, you can have some protective duties here and there, and you can also sometimes restrict a bit of exports, but it must be reviewed after 3 months, 4 months, 15 days. Now, at the drop of a hat, onion price goes up, put an export ban. Pulses go up, put a ban. Then who is going to produce? Because when you put a ban, where were you when farmer was selling potatoes at 2 rupees a kg?
Exactly. By the same token, if steel prices go up, you don't put a ban on steel exports, right?
So, so I think there is an inherent implicit bias in our policy making, because policy making has been captured by the elitists, and therefore they want everything for the consumers as free. Lower the price, better it is for them for food, and they feel farmers should not be exporting at all.
But in recent times, what kind of bans have come on exports? Like which are the areas?
Take the case of onion, which is the talk of the town.
Onion is all politics,
but most of the pulses, there is a ban. Okay. Most of the oil seeds, in terms of edible oil, is a ban. Okay. So, or very limited quantities can go in 10 kg pack or 5 liter pack, and so all these are restrictive trade.
So you're saying instead of attacking the middlemen who cause artificial shortages, you put a ban on exports, which is catching the stick from the wrong end, right?
It's one wrong policy of the 1960s, which is a defunct policy we are still following. But also the case of middleman or others. I was in the mandis of Maharashtra. The commission agent takes 3 minutes, 5 minutes to do the auction. And he takes 6% commission from the farmer. There is no risk. Somebody else is buying, somebody else is selling. 6% commission.
That's huge.
On fruits, vegetables. The same thing is being done for cotton in Gujarat at 0.5%.
Why this differential?
And when you buy wheat, FCI buys wheat from Punjab, they have to give 14.5% commission and taxes and cess and all that. So,
what all this is going to the government coffers, right?
It is all such a distortion in the system that we have to rationalize these tax structures, commissions. Farmer must get access to markets across space and across time. Now, in this country, the moment you talk about across time and you say, oh, you can do forwards or you can do futures, oh, they are all sattabazis. How do you discover the price? You discover, if you don't want to sell it right now, you have to store, because the production will come at a point of time, consumption will be over a period of time.
Is it because there is no protest when you set up future markets for hard commodities, right? Because is it because agriculture commodities have a certain psychologically have a certain sensitivity because they are consumed by the people? You don't consume aluminium steel in the way you consume wheat, and is that the psychology that operates?
I think the psychology is of the 1960s and early 70s, when we had huge shortages and we did not have foreign exchange to buy it. Just to give you an example, in 1965, if we had used the entire foreign exchange of the country, entire foreign exchange reserves of the country, we could have imported maximum 8 million tons of wheat. And we were importing 10 million tons at that time under PL 480. So we could not play the trade policy because we didn't have foreign exchange. And this situation...
But today you have.
This is exactly what I am saying.
You have the confidence to let farmers export.
Today, even if you import 10 million tons of wheat, you will use only 5% of your foreign exchange reserves. So, but the mentality of trade policy is still of 1960s. Foreign exchange is there, and that is how you use the global trade to your favor, both in terms... So my submission always is, keep the exports open, and if you are short, keep the imports open, and the system will balance and will be, if there are aberrations in the system, for some time if you have to impose any controls here or there, but they must be reviewed within 3 months.
Tell me, Dr. Gulati, I have talked to you earlier also about the price, MSP's government procurement from farmers at the price that government pays to farmers. Now, a lot of economists who sit in the government, even RBI, they also reflect this bias towards inflation when it comes to food items, and they say that MSPs, the increase in MSP should be minimal, and they argued this even during this year when the farmers were really badly off. The crops got destroyed, in January, February. In that period, In spite of BJP manifesto promising that the farmers will get 50% over and above their cost of production, it was successfully argued by policymakers sitting in the government, economists, that inflation is a bigger target, a more important target to be kept, and therefore farmers need not be paid at the rate that they used to be earlier. So there was the least increase we witnessed this year for farmers. Do you think that needs to change now a little bit? Because since the inflation is also now successive months show negative inflation, WPI, and even CPI almost like 3.6, 3.7 collapsing, you know.
You know, let's look at few facts in this. The BJP manifesto had promised 50% profit over cost.
Yeah.
Today, it's not 50, but less than 5%. In fact, in majority of the commodities, it is in negative. And this is recorded in the government calculations itself. It is in negative.
Government calculations record?
Yes. The latest CACP report will tell you that even in rice, the cost is higher and the MSP is low. So you have that situation.
Rice is negative.
Most of the commodities, either they are in negative margin or less than 5% margin over cost.
Give me some negative margin commodities.
Majority of the commodities today, whether it is wheat or rice or many of the pulses, are in negative margin.
Okay.
Now, having said that,
you have done your own calculations, the government calculations.
I'll give you the government data on that. Look at those who felt that our MSPs were very high. And that's how they played it, no, keep it low.
Yeah.
Our MSP for wheat is $225 maximum at present. Even at 62 exchange rate, the exchange rate has gone to 66, but so it is 220. Look at Pakistan. Pakistan's MSP for wheat is $320 and China is $385 a ton.
For
wheat.
Wheat. And how much is ours?
Ours is 220 today.
Pakistan
220, 320 and 385. What are we talking when we say our MSPs are so high? These people have no clue what is happening around.
Okay.
Why China is able to produce double than ours from a lesser land? Because they give incentives to their farmers.
Incentives, yeah.
Same thing in our
So repeat again, India is $220, Pakistan is $320 per ton.
And $385 per ton for China MSP for wheat.
For farmers, yeah.
And I'll stand that anywhere to say that. In case of our rice, our MSP of rice, paddy converted to rice, works out to about $320 a ton. China, Indica rice is $440 a ton and their Japonica rice is $500 a ton.
Nearly
and that's why
$100 per ton more than from what our government gives our farmers.
That is why we produce 106 million, 101 million tons of rice from 44 million hectares of rice land, whereas they produce 150 million tons of rice from 29 million hectares of land.
Oh.
That's why their productivity is so high.
Okay.
The incentives have to be given to the farmers. Now, I'm not saying you go to 385 or 320 or all that. There are many other ways to help him.
Yeah. Help lower the costs.
Lower the costs.
So that
that's right.
The existing price gives him a higher return. Yeah.
You know, the problem is government had been keeping this policy of low output prices to protect the poor.
Yeah.
But that's not the duty of the farmer.
That's not the duty of the farmer. Yeah. So you
that's
can't
the
put
duty of the. You use an income policy
to
directly give whatever you want to the consumer, so, poor consumer.
So keeping inflation low is not the duty of
the farmer.
Yeah.
Farmer should be encouraged to get the best price anywhere in the world and across time.
So thank you very much, Dr. Ashok Gulati. Hoping that that the government is listening to this interesting data that you gave us, and this bias against agriculture is corrected in due course. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.